Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our bizarre and unusual world. Today we are feeling the old Hollywood vibes, if you will, because it relates to today's topic at hand. In today's episode I will be going over the death of Thelma Todd.
Excitement. I want a hot.
As usual for my series here, I will be covering the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the death of Thelma Todd. So let's start with the when and the where. So this case takes place in the 1930s, and as I mentioned, it is a Hollywood glamour case, so it takes place in California. Ah, the California dream. So who was Thelma Todd? Thelma was born July 29th, 1906 in Lawrence, Massachusetts. She graduated from high school in 1923 with the intention of going to college to become a teacher. She was known for being very bright and determined even at a young age. She was a very beautiful girl, so she started competing in beauty pageants, beauty contests at her mother's request, and some of this even included acting contests. This would prove to be a very big deal in Thelma's life because she would actually catch the attention of a scout from Hollywood. In 1925, she won Miss Massachusetts, and it was then that she was flagged down by a talent scout from Paramount Studios. She was then recommended to attend the Paramount School for Junior Stars. Now this was pretty much ran by Paramount Movie Studios, so this was a fantastic way to get into the Hollywood lifestyle, the actress glamour, and all of that jazz. Movie producer Hal Roach signed her on a contract and started casting her in short comedies. Thelma would go on to star in over 100 different films. She started with short little silent films and made her way into comedy skits that she would really become known for. She was often seen as the ice cream blonde and worked along the Marx Brothers and other members of Hollywood scene. As I said, she is more well known for her comedic roles, but part of her wanted to dive into the world of dramatic film roles. Wishing to separate herself from comedy, when she did do work on the film Courgette, which was a dramatic film, she used the name Allison Lloyd instead of Thelma Todd. It was during this time that she worked with her on-again, off-again lover, Roland West. This was a man that suggested that he could get her into the more dramatic roles that she was seeking. Thelma Todd's personal life was a bit of an up and down, if you will. There was lots of rumors and speculation on who she would be dating, who she was hanging out with, whether that be directors or movie producers or different people within Hollywood. However, in 1932, Thelma did marry Pasquale DeSico. He was a movie producer and an agent in Hollywood. They actually went off and eloped, if you will. This relationship was anything but positive, though. Family and friends said that they were very hit and miss in their moments. Lots of fighting, lots of very loud argument, and there was some things I read that he didn't even bother introducing her to his family back east because it was just so quick and their relationship was very fiery. When asked about divorce rumors, Thelma addressed the topic with humor, stating, "I'm afraid it would be silly to move a divorce announcement now. With so many being discussed in Hollywood, I wouldn't have a chance to get any sort of publicity." She told the judge that Pasquale was surly and unpleasant in the presence of guests, which was kind of code for a very abusive, if you will, and the judge went ahead and granted her a divorce. The divorce went through in 1934, and that same year, Thelma decided to expand her business horizons and look into something new. As her fame grew, Thelma decided to invest in other business opportunities and went ahead and opened a restaurant/cafe in Malibu. This was called Thelma Todd Sidewalk Cafe. This was a big hotspot because all of Thelma's Hollywood star friends would come and attend her cafe. It was very much seen as a glamorous location. You could go here and see all of the movie stars. Now, Roland West was her partner in this business. He was her former lover, on again, off again, former director that I had previously mentioned. Which, in my opinion, made things extremely awkward because they were actually living above the business. Thelma, Roland, and Roland's wife. But this restaurant cafe was very important to Thelma. She saw it as truly another business opportunity for herself when her Hollywood stardom kind of died down. She was like planning for the future, for retirement. She would have this business to fall back on if she wasn't a movie star for the rest of her life, which was smart. It was a wonderful location at 17575 Roosevelt Highway, which is now known as the Pacific Coast Highway. The lower floor became Thelma's Sidewalk Cafe, and the upper level was a ritzy nightclub. The third floor was that spacious apartment area that Roland, his wife, and Thelma all lived in. So now moving on to what? What exactly happened to Thelma Todd? On Saturday, December 15th, 1935, Thelma attended a party located at the Trocadero on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. It is noted that she looked absolutely beautiful that night. She was just radiating, and she was the definition of Hollywood glam.
Well, how do I look?
Now, it's safe to say that this party didn't exactly go as planned because when Thelma arrived, her ex-husband was actually there with his new girlfriend. But she didn't end up leaving the party. She stayed and mingled with friends and enjoyed her evening. Now, it's good to keep in mind that Roland, the business partner, ex-lover, dude she lived with, right, told Thelma that the apartment would be locked at 2 a.m. And now Thelma didn't leave the party until like 3:15. She loved a good party. She was out with friends, just enjoying her night. Her chauffeur ended up taking her home, and about 3:45 is when he dropped her off at the foot of a very long staircase that went up to the hill where the apartment was. And Thelma declined his invitation to help her up the stairs or to make sure she got home safely. And sadly, that is the last time that Thelma was seen alive as the chauffeur pulled off. The morning of December 16th, 1935, Thelma's longtime maid came into work as usual. Now, it's kind of suggested that it was a normal routine for the maid to go to the garage, move Thelma's car about a block down to the restaurant instead of the apartment garage. The maid, May Whitehead, went into the garage and sadly found Thelma slumped over in her 1932 Lincoln convertible. The maid was quoted as saying, "She was slumped in the front seat of her car, just bent over, her head to the left." It's said that the ignition was still on, but the car had run out of gas. The maid also noted that she thought that Thelma had some blood around her nose and her lip area. The official cause of death would be stated as carbon monoxide poisoning. So the thoughts of suicide or accidental death were of course brought up. Perhaps she accidentally fell asleep in her car and sadly passed away, or she had intentionally locked herself in with the car. But if that's the case, then why? Why do people suspect foul play within this case? So according to an article that the Los Angeles Times published a day after Thelma Todd's death, the officers turned to probable reason for death by foul means. Within the past 3 months, 2 men had been arrested in New York in connection with extortion notes and telephone calls received by Miss Todd, demanding $10,000 under penalty of death, but there were no signs of violence at the scene of her death. And while there are several references to threats that Thelma Todd received, there was no evidence of a connection per se at the crime scene. Now, some say that there were no marks found on her body except for the bit of blood on her face that the maid had saw, while other reports definitely differ. Some reports say that the blood on her face could have potentially happened when she fell over in her car and hit her face. But then a different report says that part of the autopsy said she might have had a fractured nose. So if that's the case, then how hard did she fall over? There are rumors and inconsistencies saying that she may have had a cracked tooth or a bruised rib and perhaps damage to her throat as well. But nothing can be confirmed. It's a little difficult with some of these older cases, like confirming what is a rumor or what was on the official autopsy. And there was a lot of this happening back then as well. A lot of the press were taking different things and spinning it this way, or different police officers were saying one thing and not another. It was a lot of misconception with this case. So Thelma still wore all of her fancy jewelry from her night out in the town, as well as her purse still had her money in it, so robbery was quickly ruled out. The autopsy is questioned, and I saw conflicting reports once again on whether or not she was drunk when she passed away. Like, could this have contributed to why she passed out? Had she had too much to drink that night? Other reports said that she didn't have enough alcohol in her system when she passed away. I mean, she did make it up that huge flight of stairs by herself, so I think that says something. The autopsy also showed stomach contents that did not match what was served that night at the club and the party she attended. So when did she stop for an additional meal? When does that fit on her timeline? Another question, why didn't she have a key to her home? If Roland said that the apartment was going to be locked at 2 a.m., that shouldn't have mattered. Wouldn't she have a key to the apartment as well? Or did he only have a key? What made her specifically go to the garage and get in her car, or was she made to go to the garage? While it is easy to assume Thelma's death was accidental or suicide, a lot of friends and close family kind of thought to other people she hung around or past exes that were kind of shady. So people started to point the finger at specific people. How about Roland West? He was the on-again, off-again lover, past director, business partner. Did potentially something go sour that night? I mean, they did live in the same apartment complex area as well. He would have been the one that locked the doors. Did something happen between them to where he kind of staged her death within their garage? He would have had access to that garage as well. Or how about his wife? Jewel Carmen also lived there at the apartment and in turn was a business partner within the cafe as well. Now, there's different reports that saying how she felt about how close Thelma was to her husband. Could that have been the motive on wanting to get rid of her? Then you can even go to the ideas of mobster ties. So apparently an infamous mobster named Lucky Luciano wanted to open an illegal gambling section within her restaurants, and Thelma Todd was having like none of that, like pretty much over my dead body, and he was like, hey, I can arrange that. And so threats started to come to her because she did not want him to open or have anything to do with her cafe. So is that motive on his part? Or there are all the threats and letters Thelma was receiving, and did perhaps one of them catch up with her and she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and they set it up in the garage? Some people also point the finger at the ex-husband. As I said, their relationship was not good. They were constantly fighting. It was a very toxic environment. So did something catch up with them there? The humiliation of the divorce or seeing her at the party that night, did something spring up and then he took it out on her and set it up in the garage? Despite all of these theories and thoughts from friends and family and loved ones, fans even, a grand jury decided that her cause of death was ruled a suicide. The Chicago Tribune wrote, while a grand jury ruled that Todd committed suicide, it was unable to explain her broken nose, the bruises around her throat, and 2 cracked ribs. Apparently the grand jury thought Todd also beat herself to death. So there's another example of the press saying that her body had signs of a struggle or some sort of confrontation, but they're saying that it was suicide. So how is this case remembered today? How is Thelma Todd remembered today? There are still lots of rumors and speculation with this. This is one of those cases where we will never know the full truth. This took place in 1935. The years pass, the decades go, and we'll probably never know exactly what happened to Thelma Todd, but that does not stop the rumor mill or the conspiracies around her death. Much like Marilyn Monroe, Thelma Todd's death has that Hollywood glamour aspect that kind of catches people's eye. But there are truly so many questions with this case. Why was her body injured, or to what degree was her body injured? There are strange rumors and conflicting timelines where witnesses say they saw Thelma the day after she died, while police had said she had already passed, or the timeline for her death was this and this. Other people say they saw her driving in her car the day after with an unseen man. What does that mean? Some friends did suggest that Thelma had a new man in her life, but they had no idea who he was. Hollywood has always been toxic. Some friends suggested she had gotten hooked up on diet pills to stay in shape, but with her depression that didn't help things and she started drinking more. Was it the business side of things? Was the business going downhill? Did that make her depression flare up to where she potentially took her own life? Was she simply locked out of the house and she went to the garage to sleep in her car or try and stay warm and it was completely accidental? I mean, people go as far as suggesting that her mother had something to do with it because she wanted to get in on her riches, if you will. Rumors, of course, say that Roland made a deathbed confession about knowing more about her death than he let on. But there are just so many questions and no answers for this case. I wish that there was like a concrete case file with this on what her state of her body was in. Was she injured? Did it look like she had been attacked? Did it look like it was just accidental? Clearly the jury thought that it was suicide, but then you have all of these reports from all of these different news publications saying that there was evidence that that wasn't the case. So one friend said, "She always picked the wrong guys. She was a party girl." Another said, "She was drawn to men who were extremely dangerous. That was her Achilles heel. Playing with fire was a personality problem. She was abused and manhandled, and ultimately, we think it cost her her life." So what do you guys think about this case? Do you think that Thelma Todd's death was just completely accidental? Do you think that it was suicide? Do you think that there's more to the case or cover-up or mystery of who was involved? I feel like there's something sketchy. Like, I feel like something wasn't fully released or someone got away with something. It's weird, some of the sketchy inconsistencies with this case. But as always, I would love to hear what you guys think about the Thelma Todd case. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode.
Why, that's silly. We're just very good friends.